Welcome to Metal Wani and Metal Nation Radio. With us today, we have the legendary Bobby Blitz of Overkill. How are you doing?
How we doing on Metal Wani? Everything well?
Absolutely fantastic.
Good to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Cheers, buddy. Now, 3.5 decades. Now, if I roll back to 1980 when Overkill came into the picture, now it's such a historic career. It's such an amazing, you're still going strong, you're still kicking ass. Do you feel, and how do you feel about this longevity of the band?
Well, obviously to us it's natural, but when I look back on it and actually see the amount of time and the weight and the distance that this journey has taken us on, it's quite impressive. I think this is actually more than a career at this point. It's actually a life, and somewhere back there in the 80s when we said, "Hey, man, I'm in for life," I guess Overkill actually meant it. So we're happy to be still contributing at a high level and doing it in a healthy scene.
Absolutely. Now, talking about, like I said, the longevity. Now, it's always been the case that over the period of time that bands evolve and sometimes they change the sound, sometimes they experiment within the same zone and spread the wings. But Overkill has done it all. You guys have been consistent. I don't recollect any other thrash metal band, at least from the Bay Area scene, that has changed. But you guys maintain that. Fans love it. And eventually, over the period of so many albums, it's always been a treat for the fans. How important do you feel was it for you guys, you and Dee in general, to stick to the plan of being consistent yet experiment?
I think the beauty of it, or the reason it worked, is because there's not a lot of talking about it. It is what it is. I think early on, at least by the record horoscope, we realized that we didn't have an identity crisis. We knew who we were, and we knew what we wanted to do. And I think what we wanted to do was to continue doing what we were doing.
Right.
So we didn't sit down and talk about it. All we did was to try to make each experience or each coming episode in our journey the best it could possibly be. And I think that if you're going in with that type of an attitude, you're going to have more successes than failures. Right. And I think that's where I can point the finger at and say, this is why it worked. It was really not about wondering who we were. It was knowing who we were and doing the best that we could with who we were.
Absolutely right. Now let's talk about the new box set, this insanely huge box set called Historikill. Now, 1995 to 2007 spans, almost like 12 to 13 years of your career, and 7 of the original 17 Overkill albums, right from the Killing King to the Immortalist. Now, I always wondered, the moment I got to know about this box set, whose idea was it to release it? Because it's been 13 years since the last one. I think that was Then and Now in 2002, right?
And that was a small box set put out by CMC Records, or Metal Is. That was the Sanctuary people were involved with a label that we were on, and they wanted to put out kind of this greatest that they had their hands on. But this box set was our idea. We've managed and self-managed the band since the 90s. We've taken on a partner in recent years. Right. But when Dee and I were cutting these deals back in the 90s, we started doing licensing deals.
Okay.
It seemed the way to go. So because we knew that these rights would return to us. Now, Nuclear Blast just recently had offered us a worldwide deal.
Right.
And as we were talking, the conversation brought itself over to catalog that we had now retained the rights to. And it was all the stuff that you find within Historikill.
Right.
So we thought it was a great way to kind of shed some light on maybe the darker days of metal. Right. The era when grunge stepped on metal in the U.S., when metal was less popular. But still, there's solid, great releases which in this period of time that just happened to be in the underground and got less attention by mainstream press. So right. I think that what we're doing is we're showing that it never went away. It was always here. And here's the living proof of such. So if you're familiar with the new and you're familiar with the old, but not the middle, here's your chance to be up to date and current in one box set.
Absolutely, because that was my next question. I mean, it's a chance for the fans to own these copies from the last 13 years. I mean, some of them are sold out, some of them are not even available on the internet. So, keeping that in mind, I mean, be it Wrecking Your Neck or even the other live album like Wrecking Everything, it's got everything. I mean, and then you guys have some demos, some remixes, and a cover song as well. So, it's something which probably fans may never see, from Overkill because it's like once in a lifetime opportunity.
Well, I think so too. And it's maybe it's not for the guy who followed all of that period of time, the guy who was connected to that era, or the girl,
Uh-huh.
but for sure, there's when metal's popularity started becoming healthy again, when it was 2005, and there's great releases coming out, and there's younger bands coming out, and they're using the blueprint of 1988 for their releases in 2010.
Right.
And the older bands are releasing really competitive, high energy, great releases, whether that be Death Angel or Exodus or Testament,
Hmm.
Overkill. There's a great healthy scene there, and I think that part of the scene dragged a lot of younger people into it.
Right.
But shit happened before that too, and that's what the proof is in the Historikill release.
Absolutely. No, I still own a copy of Overkill, which is, I've been a fan of this cover album, which you guys released in, late 90s. It is some of the best interpretations of how Overkill nailed it all. And I always felt that fans deserve another cover album from you guys. So have you guys ever thought about writing one more?
We never really thought of it. It was a unique situation to be in because I remember in the early days when you would release a Japanese domestic copy that
Hmm.
you needed to give extra bonus tracks to it, and they would accept a cover song.
Right.
This was because they didn't want the market flooded with kind of low-level imports
Hmm.
that would be cheaper than the domestic product. So we
Hmm.
did all these covers, and we had a bunch of them that were just saved up, and then we added a few more to it. So it was based on that situation that we had done Overkill, and it was a unique experience to do because they were our interpretations of these songs. I don't think that one of those songs sounds like the original band doing it.
Right.
It sounds
Right.
like Overkill doing it, and that was the key with regard to how we were approaching that record.
Absolutely, because that's why I said some of the best interpretations of Overkill killing it because it definitely doesn't sound like how the bands, the original creators have done it. But that's what I feel cover should be all about. You don't have to replicate it; you can add your own touch.
Yeah, it's a great point because as I was talking earlier on about identity, I think that we bring our identity into those covers, and that's really the idea of doing that.
Absolutely. Now, Man in Black by Johnny Cash. A legend. His discography is huge, and selecting just one out of it would have been a challenge for you guys.
Well, we started doing. I started learning the Johnny Cash, essential Johnny Cash, to do a side project
Hmm.
back in '07, because
Wow.
I wanted to be able to sing on this side project differently. I didn't want to make it Overkill Part Two, and I
Right.
think that my voice is too identifiable for me to not learn something for a side project. So I learned as much Cash as I could,
Hmm.
and discovered that my voice had a low end in it. At the same time, I was telling Didi, you got to try one of these covers, man. You got to try one of these Cash covers. If not for Overkill, do it for one of your side projects or just record it. And he did. One day he just recorded Man in Black with a kick drum and a clean electric guitar, and I came down to a studio and I put some vocals over it.
Hmm.
And a week later, he matched all my vocals. So what we did with this song was we actually did a duet.
Wow.
So it's Didi and myself singing the song. So and it was never to bastardize the song. It was
Right.
to sing it as we would sing it, but play it in its more traditional presentation.
Absolutely. Now you and Didi, you guys have been like the backbone of this band right from the time it started. Over the period of time, was it ever a moment where you felt like, I'm done with it? Did you ever get that feeling? Because metal has its own ups and downs, but then those who manage to fight against it and still survive are basically the heroes in heavy metal.
Yeah, I suppose that's a good point. I never have had the thought that I want this to end.
Hmm.
I thought a few times it would end. I thought it was going to be out of my control.
Hmm.
Whether that be a health issue or something like so, where I just wouldn't be able to sing anymore.
Right.
Um, but I never had the discussions with Vitek or he with me about, hey, maybe we can't do this anymore. It was never that. It was always a reinvention of what we are doing. It was about uh, taking. It's great to be in a band, but then we had to look at it as a business and how do we reinvent our business
Right.
in this ever-changing world. And I think it's one of the things that we did and gave us the opportunity to stay around, for instance, in that Historikill period when a lot of other bands just refused to reinvent themselves.
True.
So our business, I suppose it's part of our business sense and our work ethic gave us that opportunity to continue on when it didn't look like it was possible to continue on for a lot of other people.
Exactly, because that's my point here. That thrash metal, was done and dusted, but then there are bands like Overkill who still redesign the wheel. So, that's another inspiration that bands should consider from Overkill. That even though there was a trend in metal with people, the bands changing their sound, you guys still maintained, the balance.
Well, it was a challenge. I mean, without a doubt. But I don't think we ever thought it was ever an impossibility. All we did was look other places, search other things, find other contacts. It was, if I sat in my room and played my acoustic guitar and smoked cigarettes and drank beer, wondering why nobody wanted to talk to me anymore, well, it's pretty obvious because you're
True.
sitting in your room smoking cigarettes.
That's
so,
right.
so you knock on doors, you make phone calls, I remember times we were doing the Bloodletting record,
Hmm.
and Iron Maiden and Judas Priest were playing Madison Square Garden, and I had the demos done.
Hmm.
And I knew Rod Smallwood was going to be at Madison Square Garden, and I nosed my way in there and pushed and shoved, and and it was 2002, and I said, Mr. Smallwood, Mr. Lipsky, this is the new Overkill demo. We want that Rob Halford tour next time. and,
Awesome.
well, somebody looks at you and goes, the balls on this guy, But
Yeah.
I mean, I was obviously accepted very well by them, and knew some people in the room and shook some hands, and pretty soon thereafter, we were getting a call when Halford was doing a solo tour that, hey, we'd love to have you on board, and maybe that's the way you get it done. It was still the age of the internet, but I still had to knock on that door to have it done, and Didi was right next to me.
Absolutely. And did you ever imagine, or let's say, do you even have a thought of, let's say, have a Bobby Blitz solo album?
Well, I only did The Cursed. It was a record released in 2007.
Hmm.
I did it with Dan Lorenzo, and this is the record I'm talking about with regard to learning the Johnny Cash stuff
Right.
and trying to understand a different. And it's more of a rock and roll record than it is a metal record, but that was fun. It was some saxophone solos as opposed to lead guitar solos. So it was really just a fun project for the sake of having a fun project. So I don't really think in terms of that because Overkill takes up a lot of my time.
Right.
I'm in my office right now. I'm looking, everything in here says Overkill. There's 10 or 15 things that need to be read or approved, and there's merchandise that needs to be manufactured to go out for our tour with Symphony X,
Right.
and then so it's a continuous circle. So I think somewhere in my answer it's no, that I don't think of that.
I
But the reason it's no is because this is still busy and fruitful and it's keeping our most of our attention.
Absolutely. Now, Bobby, let's talk about your voice. I mean, now you still sound fresh. The moment I heard White Devil Army, I was like, this guy, energetic, insanely powerful, or on the albums, how do you even manage to take care of your amazing voice?
Well, I think the key is not worrying about it.
Hmm.
That's the way it is for me. I smoked for years. I've only off tobacco now for a 3 year period, and I think I really reaped the rewards of it on White Devil because it freshened my voice up a little. It gave me much more lung power. So I'm 56. I stopped smoking at 53.
3. Hmm.
So the idea is that I smoked way too long, but it still wasn't too late to stop. So I think that's probably the only thing that I've done consciously. Occasionally I warm up if I have a sore throat. I take an anti-inflammatory before I go on, just something very simple like an Advil or something. before I go on stage, so my vocal cords don't swell. And I've never had trouble or had to cancel a show because of my voice. So I really don't think about it too much. It's just kind of a simple process.
Awesome. In fact, I was having a chat with Biff Byford the other night, and we were talking about the new Saxon album, Battering Ram, and about his voice as well. Age plays a matter, but I always felt that you and Biff are ageless. Something which the fans, basically the bands who started way back, should take a note from you, that how to be ethical and also maintain your voice, because that's where your magic lies.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, it's an identifiable quality of the band, much like Biff's voice is an identifiable quality for Saxon. So I think you don't really want that to change. But there's something that is not positive when it comes to stress or worry. So I don't, for me to spend time in the stress factor or the worry factor, like, oh, will my voice be okay for the tour? I don't think in those terms. I think that, of course, my voice will be okay for the tour. It always is. So,
right.
And I don't mean that with conceit, but I mean that with kind of more so with a positive inner energy or inner thought.
Absolutely, and that might, what about writing a book, Bobby? Write a book on how to maintain the voice. I mean, you and Biff should, team up and write a book, and write a personal journey on how to maintain the voice even after you guys, keep crossing your age.
Well, I'll tell you, my book would only be one page. I think I've said it all just now to you.
Yeah, that's really cool. I was, in fact, really disappointed. You must have seen from the last few weeks that Lemmy is not keeping well, and they had to cancel. Motorhead had to cancel the show. So it's another thing where the band members realize very late that their drinking addictions actually lead to these issues, and fans are praying for his recovery.
Well, I'm as great as our modern day technologies are. Sometimes it just absolutely disgusts me that we we love looking at car accidents. I mean, we're a society that has to stop and look when there's a disaster.
Right.
And I really, for all that man has done for this scene, for all he's done for me on a personal level. His friendship over the years and his good nature. I wish only the best for this person, and pay very little attention to the fact that of his situation with regard to the tour.
Right.
I'm much more concerned with his personal situation.
Absolutely.
I just want him to be okay. It's just that's as simple as it is. And I really, I'm in some cases it should just be, social media should be left out of some instances, but I don't think we can. I just don't think we can as a society anymore. It's too ingrained. But I can't make decisions for other people, and I know him as a man of no regrets, and and support everything he does now and in the future.
That's right. In fact, it reminded me of what Carl Sanders of Nile says, that internet is something which has screwed the humanity from last 1.5 decade.
Oh yeah, it's taken it away from us. It's turned us. Yeah, it's taken it away from us. But regardless, to reinvent yourself in your business and the music industry, I mean, you have to embrace it, or you're left behind.
Absolutely. Now, Bobby, Symphony X Tour coming up. Is there some preparations of playing some, continue to play the new material, or you would be, going back to the early era and having, have a really different set list as compared to your normal tours?
Well, leaning on the new material is always one of our likes.
Right.
We played those songs less. That's the bottom line. That's the reason. To grab something from Immortalis or the Electric Age, Ironbound, White Devil, it's the idea is that I've played Rotten to the Core 10,000 times, but I've played Armorist or Bitter Pill 100 times.
Right.
So it's much more fun to play the ones that we haven't played so often. So we always lean in that direction and then pepper it with some of the classic stuffs, and then try to grab something that's hidden, something that has not been played either in a very long time or something that we've never played live.
Awesome. Fantastic. So Overkill writing something? I mean, it's been 1.5 years since White Table Automony. So anything happening with you and Didi working on some new demos or material?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's always that's always the case. I mean, there's we're in a phase right now where we write separately. I get bits of riffs. He gets bits of vocal lines. I hear some stuff from Dave Lentz. It always is going back and forth. And when we're out on the Symphony X tour, there'll be a lot of back lounge of the bus with a guitar going and a little recorder. I mean, that's kind of the way we get it done. I really like writing on the road because it gives a kind of a great energy. It kind of transfer what happens from the stage right to the tape to some degree when you're demoing. So it's really a cool way to look at getting like an immediate type of an energy.
Fantastic. So how's it sounding so far? What sort of musical direction will Overkill be kicking this time?
Well, again, not reinventing the wheel. I mean, it's Overkill is what Overkill is, and I think that's somewhere in there lies the beauty of the band's principles, is that we can be comfortable in the fact that we write this type of metal. And I think the hardest thing, or the thing I think about the most, is that there's a fine line between repetition and style.
Right.
So I don't like to necessarily repeat myself, but I don't like to lose my identity either.
That's right. Now, seriously, Bobby, bands, you need to take a note from you. We're having a chat for the third time, and I'm sure you don't remember the first two times we had, but I do remember, because probably these might be one of the very few interviews you've done from anybody from India.
Yes, I do remember talking to you once before. But this is actually a clearer. I remember the last interview being not as clear when we were talking to each other.
It was a phoner. It was a phoner.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a phoner.
Okay. Yeah.
That's right. So India, Overkill never played here. So whether any offers or something which shaped up but didn't work out, or something which at least fans can be excited, because let me tell you, Bobby, you have. The fan base here is equivalent of how it is, when it comes to bands like Megadeth or Metallica. Overkill is damn famous here, but fans never got to see you guys.
In 2012, it looked like it was gonna pan out. Maybe it was 2011.
Mm-hmm.
We had gotten an offer in Mumbai, and there was, I think, 3 shows total. But we just couldn't get it all together with the promoter. So would I like to? Of course. I mean, you always want to see somewhere new. It's always exciting to go to somewhere new because there's a special energy with your first encounter with the people and the band. I think it kind of works out really well.
Awesome. So probably if you guys are releasing an album next year, so that might be another chance for the touring cycle to begin, and probably one day it'd be here in Bangalore or in Mumbai.
Well, we never turn down opportunity if the opportunity works. So, for sure, if the offers come, then for sure we're in.
Absolutely. Bobby, thank you very much for sparing some time. Wow, it's been 24 minutes and it just didn't feel like, we spoke on and on. It's great. It's great having a chat. Always an honor.
Hey, what do you say? This is Bobby Blitz from Overkill. That's right. And this is Metal Wani.